Welcome, everybody. Yeah. Boy, all of you feel so calm and cool. I don't know what to do. I just came off of Georgia Avenue in traffic. Thank you. Thank you. There's something very powerful when a group of people gather together with good intentions. They say things can change. You know. So thank you all for coming out. I think for many of you it's not your first time, and but for those of you in which coming to the Meditation Museum is your first time, could we see your happy hands? Wonderful. 5. What took you so long? We've been here for 6 years, and we're about to pick up and move shop pretty soon. But anyway, thank you for making it. We are very happy to have been in service to you in this community for quite some while. And the organization that sponsors and moves this idea of thought is called the Brahma Kumaris. And today is a very special day because it falls on the eve of the founder of the Brahma Kumaris, Prajapita Brahma. And I think there's something to be told about an individual who receives a download but does something with it. I think many of us get downloads, but we go back to sleep, or we go back to just carrying on in the same old way. But for Brahma Baba, who is the founder of the Brahma Kumaris, his download moved him to such an extent that individuals who met him told him, there's something going on here. What's happening? And here we are 80 years later from that download. We have 9,000 branches in 120 countries with 1 million volunteers. So what can happen when you get a download and do something with it, right? So we're very happy to have been of service to you and continue to be of service to you. And my name is Sister Jenna, and I think some of you see me here quite a lot, and it's nice to see a lot of the faces that I'm familiar with. We have a wonderful discussion today on forgiveness. And I was telling Sister Kala that we had sent out an invitation almost like 3 weeks ago on how to be peaceful and nonviolence, and 9 people reserved. And then we decided to move this up, and let's talk about something maybe for ourselves, how to forgive and move on, then 100 people reserved. And I was telling her that spoke volumes to me because we're at a stage that we need tools. We know that we can be a lot better than we are. And the question is, some experts who come through the doors of the museum have been able to offer us a lot of insight on how we can be better people. And so you're getting a gift today because Dr. Kala is not only my teacher, but she's also the head of Peace Village Learning and Retreat Center, which is in the Catskills. And for about, 16, 17 years now it's been opened? 16 years. It's a retreat space of 300 acres. It has how many rooms? How many rooms? 110 plus rooms. And I think she has catered to thousands and thousands and thousands of folks over the years. And when you look at her, she's tiny. But it's a stick of dynamite somewhere in there, you know, and just her wisdom. By profession, she's a medical doctor, and I think about 17 years ago, she actually finally retired and started to dedicate herself full-time to the movement of spirituality. But before I ask Dr. Kala to come up, I want to mention someone in the audience, and he might feel a little bit on the spot at this moment, but we got some stats of our year in review. And by now, you know, we have at least 200 events per year here. So we have thousands of people that come through the walls or the doors of the Meditation Museum. And in the stats, it says that there's one person that has attended 71 events at the museum. And he's here today. Yes, we go stop. Come on, stand up. 71 events. I'm sure you were. Yeah. So thank you, Yesby. We wanted to acknowledge you because I think Thank you. Thank you. That's a record. All right. So you have something now to look forward to in 2015. Can you beat Yesvi? All right. So without further ado, it gives me great privilege to welcome Dr. Kala. Please come up. A Brahma Kumari member for over 30-something years, where she has dedicated her life to spiritual development. And as a result of her spiritual development, it has become a sample and an inspiration for thousands around the world. From 4 o'clock in the morning until sometimes 11 p.m. at night, she's always on the move, sharing, facilitating, supporting the lives of others, and is just a consistent force of humble, like very humble, quiet, pure, loving spirituality. So she's going to take us on a journey on how to move on and move forward. So I welcome Sister Kala.
Om Shanti. I think all of you know Om Shanti, right? Even the 5 new ones. It's a greeting of peace. That's very dear to our heart in the Brahma Kumaris. Only because we say it with full meaning, introducing ourselves as peaceful souls. Om Shanti. Well, I must say what a privilege and pleasure it is for me to be in this space today on the auspicious occasion of the eve of our Founders' Day, tomorrow, 18th of January, when our dear father, founder father, we don't only call him founder, but founder father, ascended to angelic heights several years ago. And we always observe this time, this day, as a day of peace, actually. As a day of remembrance that we're all of the same core, if you may, as souls. The same core that he was made of. We are also made of the same core. So the topic, as you know, it was not my chosen topic. And yet there's no coincidence, I think, that I should be here and we should be talking about this very, very endearing topic to all of us. And what struck me when Shenaben was telling me about the switch in the numbers that came in was that it obviously means that we all want to be in that space of forgiveness. And we look at it as a very important element in our lives, individually, of course, but also collectively as we move forward to make things better for our world. But my dilemma is, how do we do it in an hour? How do we talk about something like this, or even experience something like this in less than an hour? Because there's such a vast depth and spectrum of different aspects of not only understanding but beliefs that we carry with us over such a long period of time that have become so ingrained in us, which is what is making us into who we are, right, today. So there are several things that come to my mind, and I'll just throw them out in not any particular order. And then hopefully we'll be able to dwell a little bit more into depth of them, if that's okay. And the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about forgiveness is this basic assumption that we all have and we all grow up with and that we all hold on to, that there is a right and a wrong. Right? That there's a right way of doing it and there's a wrong way of doing it. And that's it. There's no in-betweens. There's no befores and there's no afters. As I see it is what it is, how it is. Yes? Would you agree with that? It's a belief I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And some of us, of course, have moved on from that belief as we've been on a spiritual path, and I acknowledge that. I know that. But by the same token, for us to really appreciate the full impact of what forgiveness is and what it can do, I think it's important to appreciate where it comes from, the need for this forgiveness. And that is, we obviously feel that something was not done in the right way. And because it was not done in the right way, or it wasn't the right thing to do, even not even in the right way, but the right thing versus the wrong thing, people have to be punished. And the alternate to that punishment is forgiveness. But then what about after forgiveness? Is it really going to improve things? Is it going to make things better? How does forgiveness come into the picture? So I think there is this whole philosophy around the right, wrong, impact of what we do, what it leaves behind. And where does forgiveness fit into the picture? And the way we see it, when we study spirituality here, is that yes, we're all different. We're all at different levels and different stages of our journey of understanding the whole picture of spirituality and spiritual laws and principles, starting from not even believing in something like spiritual, quote unquote, to all the way to really wanting to be the highest and following the highest codes of conduct that we ever can do to make ourselves better. So there's this whole spectrum. And the right and the wrong really is very relative. If you really begin to see it in that way. Standing at any particular point for me and looking at someone's action and judging whether this was punishable by so many years of being in prison, or whether it is worthy of letting go and forgiving. I'm just putting it in a very gross way. So it's one way of doing it, but it's a linear way of doing it, right? It's like looking at it as is now, and looking at it as I understand right and wrong. But as I was saying, there is a way that we all evolve on our spiritual journey where we learn, we grow, we understand, and we feel things differently, and therefore we start doing things differently. And one of the things that the founder father, Brahma Baba, he specifically made a point of including in his teachings is that everyone but everyone is entitled to spiritual growth. spiritual growth. Everyone is entitled to spiritual enlightenment. Everyone is entitled to a realization of who we truly are. But they have to be given an opportunity. They have to be given a medium, an environment, some resources. And so if you look at it that way, and looking at my own life, and the way I understood right and wrong, I can see how what used to be right for me is not right anymore for me. Right? I used to get away with everything, with a lot of things. And today, I don't feel, if I do the same things over, I can get away with it. And I want to go back to that little quote, and that is, we must all turn into our conscience. So what really happened for me, I think, is that the measure of the right and the wrong actually changed, because I started to tap into something inside that is called the conscience. And I believe this is an important part of the equation of forgiveness, and that's why I'm putting it forth to you. That if we could all, somehow or the other, from time to time, even for brief moments, go back to this element of our own conscience, the equation of forgiveness will probably become a little bit easier, because it'll have to be starting with my own self. It's not so much about forgiving somebody or somebody forgiving me, but each one of us taking that responsibility, being accountable through that conscience to whatever we have done, and stand as someone that either needs to be forgiven or is forgiving someone else. So I want to put it out there in terms, for whatever it is worth, the right and the wrong concepts that we have in our head is many times very relative. And I'm not saying that, there should be no punishments and no rights and wrongs, and, we have to, given all of that, but sometimes we ignore a system that we already have inbuilt inside of us, which is our own conscience, right? And so the more we look outside for whether someone should be forgiven by the system or not, or punished by the system or not, the more we are ignoring our own ability to do that for ourselves. And the more we ignore that ability, the more the need to resort to external systems, so to speak. And we all know that that system of external forgiveness is many times not adequate, fails. It's not always just, right? So opening up to our own conscience actually does one more thing, and that is it opens us up to a higher power. Someone who is kind of ultimately holding this reign of right and wrong, not in the sense of controlling it, but who only absolutely knows that. But we'll talk about that later. The other thing that forgiveness brings to my mind is really the feeling of hurt. Right? It's fine to say this one did the right thing, that one did the wrong thing. As a third person, I can sit back and watch and say, no, I shouldn't judge anyone. But when I personally feel hurt, so to speak, not get hurt, but feel hurt, then the question of forgiveness becomes very heavy. It's a big one now. It's not just about anybody. It's not about a third person. It's not a theoretical concept, but it's about my feelings, what it has left inside of me deeply, or what I have left inside of someone deeply. where there has been this sense that something has been violated, whether it is on a physical level, whether it is on a mental level, an emotional level, or it is on a spiritual level. But when we feel that we are hurt, what we're really saying is that something, my territory has been invaded. You know, my rights have been snatched away from me. And someone has actually devalued me, has not fully recognized the value of who I am, what I am, and has acted against that. And therefore I feel hurt. And I can't let go of that. Because this is such a reality for me. How can I let go and how can I forgive? Right? And I think we've all been through that situation. And yet we all know that in this situation of whatever has happened, the longer I continue to hold and harbor those feelings, what happens? The worse it gets, right? Someone was sharing with me a story as little young boys, and we were very good friends for a long time. And something happened over a game or something like that. And then they got into an argument. Not a real big argument, just an argument. And they stopped talking. They stopped talking. And for 16 years, they didn't talk. And there was a chance after that, going on to college, and there was a chance after that for them to meet, to come together, in other words, in the same city, in the same location, and so on and so forth. And so one of the people decided that I want to go in and meet this one. Just one bright morning went in and started to meet. And when the person opened the door and they met, it was like they were never separated. They were never not talking for all that length of time. All he had to do was show up at his doorstep and say, "Here I am," and gave him a big hug. And I was very moved by that story. Because I'm sure in the 16 years, many times in both of these minds, many things would have happened. Should I not? Should I not? You know? But this feeling of hurt, where does it come from? It really comes from your ego, isn't it? My ego was hurt. And why should I be the one to go first and either apologize or say, you know, let's be friends again or make friends again, you know? So it's this big, humongous rock that's sitting inside inside each one of us, I think, that multiplies the hurt. Hurt is one thing. And it's probably many times not big enough that we cannot let go because we are bigger than our ego. You know, I'm sure we can do that. I mean, bigger than the hurt that we have taken. But when it comes to ego, it kind of magnifies the hurt. And it's that doesn't allow us to let go, to forgive, to be the first one to say, "I'm sorry." Right? A tiny little step like that can be such a big thing because of ego. And again, as we all know, that ego is something that is not original. It's not our natural awareness of who we are. It's something that we have falsely created around us. It's imaginary, it is illusionary, it is something that is not quite real. If we really come to terms with who we are, Om Shanti, right? Om Shanti. I am a peaceful, loving, beautiful soul. Mm. If we really come to terms with who we are, we don't need that ego. We don't need that ego to defend us. Mm. Because we could be creating and recreating and, recreating stories in our head that are going to make us feel more heavy, burdened, bad, guilty, lose our happiness, many, many things. I mean, I don't have to tell you all those things. But the fact is that this feeling of hurt is something that emerges when we feed our ego, sustain that ego in different ways. And so again, one of the practices that we are taught over and over again here in the Brahma Kumaris tradition is replace that ego with a sense of self-worth. Who we are, what you're worth, what is your value, self-respect, if you may. Start respecting yourself instead of asking for that respect from someone else. Okay, someone said something. So what? So what? I am who I am. And again, so these two things come into one is that we are hurt, and the other is that we want to prove that we are right. So these two things, I think, come to mind where forgiveness becomes difficult. And yet we know that there are certain relationships, certain situations where it becomes easy to forgive. Can you think of a couple of relationships where you can forgive someone? Easily, more easily than someone else? I'm sure they're different for everyone, but in general, if you were to say, it's easy for me to forget this one, but not so easy for me to forgive this one, what would those relationships be? Parents. Parents and children, right? As a parent, either a mother or a father. More so a mother, right? It's easy for a mother to forgive her child. No matter how many times that child goes back and does the same thing that you're not supposed to do. Will come back and say, and the mother will say, okay, one last time. Of course, that becomes a weakness in that case. I'm not saying it's a strength definitely necessarily, but that same thing can turn against the mother, the forgiveness. And this is why they talk about tough love, right? So there is love there that allows you to forgive. It's the love that allows you to go beyond the right and the wrong. It's the love that allows the ego to melt. It's the love that is able to see that you'll be different tomorrow. To have the hope. Right? We want to be able to support our attitude of forgiveness with something that's solid, and that is, there is hope that, you will not do this again. That's why the mother forgives. Right? Or even a child to another child, when they're children. This was one instance where, the boys had grown up, but when they're little children, they get into an argument, they get into a fight, they hurt, and then the next moment it's okay, especially as young little children. And that, of course, is their innocence. We say, oh, they are so innocent, they forget so easily. That's their natural ability, as children, to be able to forget so that they can forgive. So for them, the forgetting comes before the forgiving, because they don't even know about forgiving. What's forgiving for a child, you know? They just forgot that it happened, because they have more interesting things coming up in their life. An interesting game coming up. We can do something else together, right? They pick up on life and move on. So if you were to say, you know, that can we be like that with everyone? From, you know, can we act like a parent to everyone? Takes a lot. Mhm. Okay, not a parent, but someone who is a bit more senior, maybe, a bit elder, perhaps, a bit more mature, who's gone the way a little bit ahead than the other one. Can I look and say, oh, this person doesn't know better? Just doesn't know better. Right? That's what a parent thinks in the mind, right? The child doesn't know better. So somewhere within, you know, this, when we talk about love, what kind of love is it? It's the love that sees the potential for change in the other. I can maintain and sustain that hope that yes, I can let go, I can forget, I can forgive. So that those two relationships came to mind for me to kind of generate that energy, that similar kind of love. Easy? Many times with many people, yes. But why is it difficult with some people and sometimes? What's so special about those few people and those few times that I just cannot let go, forget? What do I have as I know, as a vested interest that I am holding on to this idea that this is unforgivable, so to speak? I must have an interest there somewhere. Some unfulfilled expectation, perhaps, that this person should come and apologize to me, or should act in this way, or even so, I still can't let it go. So I need to then be really honest with myself and say, where is this vested interest coming from? Because basically what we're trying to do here is, of course, we're trying to be better people for other people, but most importantly, we're trying to be better people for ourselves. Right? We're trying to be better people for ourselves. It doesn't serve us to walk with the burden of hurt. Whether it's I who have hurt someone or someone who has hurt me. Doesn't help in any way. Doesn't help my inside, my spirit, my state of well-being. It doesn't help. It doesn't help me to perform mentally, you know. In other words, even to be able to focus, to concentrate, to perform. It doesn't help mentally. Emotionally, it's devastating, right? We all know the burden of whether it's guilt or whether it is the hurt that I'm carrying, the sadness, the sorrow. Emotionally devastating, and naturally, physically too. Physically too. Because we know more and more, you know, we're getting to know how the alignment needs to happen for us to be perfectly healthy. The alignment needs to happen with our mental energy and our spiritual energy. And it's fascinating, we were just talking today, how, you know, they talk about these different kinds of blocks and how our energy is blocked and how the aura gets distorted and all of that. And then, of course, we know that it's affecting the actual physical functioning of the body. Of course, we have a different language for explaining all of that, but of course, your regular medical doctor will not put it that way. But the fact still remains that there is a deep connection between what you've been thinking and feeling and what your body is telling you, and how it's been reacting to those kind of feelings, emotions, burden, hurt, guilt. What we cannot speak, what we cannot give expression to and take care of, the body has a different way of doing that. So we know that, the reason we are here is really for ourselves, right? We really want it to be better for ourselves. So perhaps with that having said, what I would like to pose a question for you, just so that it becomes a bit more, practical for you. A couple of questions. Obviously, the fact that you're here today says a lot about your life's journey. You have had personal stories or experiences, I'm sure, that have made this topic a very prominent thing. Maybe a little story, a big story, whatever it may be. But I want to go back to, each one of you to go back to a time when something happened between you and another person. And you were able to forgive. Either instantly or take some time and process it, and after a few days or whatever. And then you were actually able to forgive. Yeah? Think of a time. Something happened, not right, hurt, guilty, whatever that may be. But then you were able to do something, maybe not even call it forgive, but something happened. It just kind of melted. It just dissipated. It was not there anymore. Perhaps it was forgiveness. Perhaps it was something else. Right? Can you recall something like that? Or perhaps it was the other way around. You felt heavy and burdened, and you felt that somebody had forgiven you. Either way. And it changed, it shifted. Yeah. You're able to recall something like that? Can you recognize the feeling, are you able to go back and locate the feeling that you were left with when that happened, the shift happened? Yes? And then as versus that, if you've had enough time to do that, want a minute more, a couple minutes more to do this? And as against that, I want you to think of another situation, perhaps something that's more current, obviously, because in this situation, you're not able to let go or forgive. Or you don't feel that somebody has forgiven you. You feel that there hasn't been compassion enough to let go. Locate your feelings again. Yeah? Maybe you don't have it. You don't have to create one. If you don't have one, well and good. You're fine. But I want you to turn to the person next to you, if you may, um, and just share briefly what happened in the last few minutes when you thought about both these situations. Were you able to kind of differentiate what you're going through or what you went through in both situations? What was it doing to you? The forgiveness and not forgiveness, non-forgiveness, so to speak. What is that doing to you? This is why I said we can't do this in half an hour. Right? Now you know. Okay, so just turn to one person next to you who is, and share, and you'll have to use your soft voices, please. So I'm hoping that everyone gets to talk, right? So make sure that both of the pair get to share. So you have a couple more minutes more. Okay. Oh, wow. There was a lot of insight that came out, right? So perhaps we need to hear a few of your voices in the room. What did that exercise mean for you? What was the last few minutes all about for you? What did you learn? Did you learn anything? Did you Are you able to hone in on something? Look at this silence now. There's a mic coming over.
I feel a relief. I feel like the anxiety is not there anymore, perhaps, because I'm able to speak about it, which before I couldn't. And especially with a stranger, a person that I don't know.
That's right. That's right. That was a big ask. Big ask. Hmm.
We were actually, at the end of our discussion, asking ourselves, does anybody truly have the intention of hurting? Because we kind of identify that we had experiences in which it was easier to forgive when we clearly identify there were no intentions of hurting. But sometimes we look at situations and we label them as having the intention of hurting us. So that's kind of a question. We don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, the way we understand each other, right? Mhm. Wonderful, yeah. There was a hand here? Was there? There's a hand back there too. Mhm.
We talked about learning to forgive yourself when in relationships, dealing with friends and family, and um, they don't want to give you closure. So learning to not wait around for closure and just moving on and forgiving yourself, forgiving the situation, because people aren't always honest and open, and sometimes it can just bother you because you want to answer, but everybody's not willing to give you true answers. So you have to learn to let go and forgive yourself and the situation and just move on.
Right, right.
One of the things that I learned at Peace Village, actually, it was on a forgiveness retreat, was something similar to that. And I thought, usually sometimes it is really frustrating when you're waiting for someone else to respond, or if you're trying to forgive and let go, but you still feel like some kind of string is still connected and you're attached. But there's an exercise that they taught us there, which is writing a letter to yourself from the person whom you're in conflict with, and apologizing and like kind of giving yourself all of the words and forgiveness that you wish would come from that person. And at first I kind of thought, I don't know if this is really going to work, but I felt like it was a really powerful tool. And recently I offered that to one of the kids that I work with who was sexually abused by her father, and it was really powerful for her too. So it's something to consider trying.
Mm. That's what I mean. How much can you do in an hour, right? So, there was one hand there I saw. Just what the question is just free flow of sharing what that exercise was for me, what was revealing for you, what you learned, if there was anything.
I think I'm still trying to find my answers, but it was comforting to know that I'm not the only one going through the process of finding those answers. There is a room full of people who is trying to figure it out too.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. One more, yeah.
Yes. I think it is easy to open up to a stranger than to the person in conflict. And the second thing is one of the situation explained to me, it is kind of feeling of betrayal or not getting what we expected, which may be fair, but we can't explain from the other person who is in conflict point of view. And for another issue, it is like feeling of being misunderstood or not really getting the blame all the time. That is I was quite agreeable with your, when you are hurt, we feel we are devaluing ourselves. That is, we don't have self-worth. Even though you're educated or anything, and especially if you're a female, you are so much less empowered and worth, and the hurt adds on, and you blame yourself, and again, the best word is we want to bring a closure, but the closure doesn't come from the other person. We have to end it. Otherwise, we'll be in the pain forever. And the only way to end it is, I found a very strong practical spirituality from Brahma Kumaris, and also like all these things, is I had to let go. Because it is affecting me more than the conflict. And if it is the other gender, it is not going to come at all. So please face it, accept it, and move on. Thank you.
That's a universal statement. Oh gosh, yes. So, yeah, it's the more you talk about it, it seems to get more and more intertwined, and there seem to be so many threads to unravel before we can actually say, oh, this is the way I want to do it, and I can do it. But by the same token, I think, as was rightly pointed out, there are certain spiritual concepts, if we understand and try to embrace, we can look at things a little differently. And for me, some of those spiritual concepts have been, as I shared already, that we all come, or we all start from a place of good intention, as was rightly pointed out. Good intention, purity, as when we say that the original nature of a soul is pure, this is what we're meaning. That we all start with good intention. Our intention is always good and pure. Somewhere over the years, somewhere over the births, somewhere over the ages, it gets colored and distorted. Our intentions get, modified, adulterated, so to speak, mixed up with other intentions. But the seed of that pure intention is always there. Like you said, nobody really absolutely means to hurt anyone. So this is the one concept I think that's very useful, that we are all pure souls. We are all beautiful souls. We are all good intending souls. We've drifted, but it doesn't mean that we'll be drifting farther and farther away forever, but it's now time for our journey back to who we were. And that's why it's important for us to remind ourselves again and again, Om Shanti. I am peaceful. You are peaceful. You are peaceful. And you are peaceful. And that peace really comes from the purity of the soul deep inside, that pure intention of the soul. So this is a basic thing. I'm not saying that this is going to help you to quickly fix and forgive people. But it's something that you can take up as a long-term practice to really say, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. I am a pure soul. I am a peaceful soul. And to feel that purity inside, the goodness inside. First in myself, and then, of course, in the other. The second thing that I think is extremely important in this subject of forgiveness, at least for me, is that I'm not accountable to any other human being, and no other human being is accountable to me ultimately. But there's a larger force at work that's kind of has a full sense of what's happening. And if there has been disorder, if there has been injustice, how it can be, put back into the right place. And the deep trust in that force up above. We call him the Supreme Soul, the source of goodness, the source of wisdom, the source of knowledge, the source of justice even, if you may. And so my accountability is really to that one. First, my accountability is to my own self, and then my accountability is to that one. And when I can take care of these two steps, it'll then be easy for me to either forgive someone or be forgiven by someone. But the important thing is that I, as a soul, must feel that original purity, and I, as a soul, must feel my connection with that Supreme Source. Why? Because the main force that is allowing forgiveness to happen, the energy of forgiveness to flow, is the energy of love. And that energy of love doesn't come from any other human being. And I can't do it for others either, but I need to fill myself with that energy of pure love, letting go, forgiveness, hoping for the best. So in that way, I feel that's an important aspect of the equation of forgiveness, that I must always go inside first, connect with that one. And the third thing is that perhaps, yes, I need to allow time for this to happen. It's not a quick fix thing. This is one of those things that may have to happen slowly. But I have to be at it. And the thing that I need to hold on is deep belief in myself, that I'm doing the right thing by working on myself to let go, to love, to forgive, to forget. And belief is a big, and I found out recently that, we can say all kinds of good things to ourselves. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But at the time of encounter, what do they say when the rubber hits the road? What I really need is to hold on to this belief that this is what I'm doing is the right thing. Because you'll be challenged, right? You'll be challenged verbally, you'll be challenged, vibrationally, you'll be challenged, subtly, even by your own self, but you just have to deeply believe that we cannot go backward, we have to go forward. And going forward means that closing that chapter of the past in a good way. As many of you said, the closure is something that has to come from me again and again and again. Even if I don't see the closure coming from the other side, I need to maintain my attempts to close the issue. And this is where our soul conscious vision comes in. Just as I said, I have a pure intention and I have received the love of God. But now what I need to do with each other, to correct or rectify things with each other, is to maintain a vision of what we call here soul consciousness. That I am a soul, you're also a soul, you're also a peaceful soul. And we have both inherited beautiful qualities from our parent, whether it's peace, whether it's love, whether it's forgiveness, patience, understanding. And when we look at each other, that's what we should be seeing in each other. And this is why I said give time. Because what you will see in the beginning is all the mistakes, all the things that went wrong, all the wrong gestures, all the wrong movements. You'll be picking up all of those things. But as you continue to practice this soul conscious vision, and another way of putting it is vision of brotherhood. Brotherhood. We talk about brotherhood, but really deeply to feel that we are all universally related, spiritually related, with a common parent, and with beautiful inheritance from our parent. We don't have to take anything from each other. We don't have to grab anything from each other. We don't have to ask for anything from each other. First and foremost, let's claim it from our parent, the one whom we call as the source of peace, the source of forgiveness, the ocean of forgiveness. Actually, God is many times referred to as the ocean of forgiveness, right? So you think He will not forgive me? And so the point I'm making is, even when we think that we have to forgive each other, but it really what we're talking about is forgiving our own self. And being forgiven, the feeling of being forgiven. And again, it's a big word, and if you truly begin to understand spirituality in its full context, as I began to say, everybody is in their journey, everybody is doing their right thing at the right time. So if you look at it that way, maybe there is nothing like forgiveness, but I still feel that this feeling that we are holding on to needs to be let go, and that's why we bring in this aspect of forgiveness, because it's healing to the soul. Without that, without actually feeling that or energy of forgiveness, we cannot move on. We cannot heal the hurt. We cannot really say, let's start new. And even when we do say, let's start new, the old patterns would still come in. Especially if you're living with somebody close and it's between the two who are living together. With the best of intentions to forgive each other. You've let go. But the very next day, the old pattern would kick in. And that's the time for me to check back. What is my vision? What's my vision? Is this my husband? Is this my wife? Is this my daughter? Is this my son? It's a soul. It's a spiritual being. And we are both children of one parent. So it's this subtle shift in this consciousness of how we look at each other. And then the attitude that comes from it, and the words that emerge, and the actions that we do that can go back to that past again and again. We have to make a shift. We have to say, no, this is not how I'm going to look at you. And it's a conscious effort. It's not an easy effort. It's a conscious effort. It's not an easy effort, but it's a beautiful reward waiting there for you. Because there is such a feeling of lightness, such a feeling of rightness, that you're doing the right thing. And then you, of course, reinforce that feeling of rightness. As I said, whenever there is an encounter or whenever there is something that's not working right. I want to bring, being that it is connected and, we are again on the eve of our 18th of January. We look up to the example set by our founder father. Where did forgiveness play its game, in his life, or what was it all about? And I think for me, the question of forgiveness for him did not come up. the word forgiveness, for example, was not necessary because his love was so huge. His wisdom was so vast. He knew people are doing exactly as they are meant to do at the right time. And it doesn't mean that they will be doing it over and over again, but they'll do it, they will learn it, and they will move on. But what do I have to be when I have to interact with them? Is I have to keep the best of my vision for them. Best of my vision for them. And I say that because there were many instances that as high and elevated as the principles he taught, the teachings he taught, were, there were many oppositions. Many people who didn't like what he taught. Why? Because it was like a revolution, spiritual revolution. Especially for women. I think some of you might have heard this before. You know, he wanted to give the right of worthiness to women, and he would promote the role of women. Lots of families didn't like it. But the fact is that he didn't feel that they were doing anything wrong. They were doing what they were meant to do. And so the question even of forgiveness did not come, but he had to do what he had to do. His energy to, that he had generated inside to move on in his journey and help people on this journey was so humongous that all the little ups and downs and, people wanting, not wanting, it was more on the periphery. It didn't kind of major. He didn't feel invaded. In other words, he didn't feel attacked. Although there were physical attacks too. But he never felt attacked because he was always in that space holding that pure energy for himself as well as for others. As a matter of fact, somebody came to attack him, to kill him, and he just saw his image there full of light. And he had to go back. So his philosophy was, when Gandhiji said, when someone slaps you on one cheek, you put the other cheek up. I always feel that founder, Brahma Baba, his philosophy was, maintain such a presence, have such love and such connection that nobody will even want to slap your one cheek. They won't even have the thought to slap. In other words, there will be such a melting of anger, ego, jealousy, greed, whatever that negative emotion may be. And for me, that is the ultimate step, right, of forgiveness. Really embracing everyone's goodness under your umbrella of goodness and purity. Giving that chance to everyone, that everyone is capable of change. Everyone is capable of change. So, my inspiration really is for him, is that level of love and compassion and purity and forgiveness, which all go together, actually. So we want to do some good meditation, right? Sister Jenna has anything to say, or before we go into meditation? Yes? No?
Can we get a nice warm clap to Sister Kala? Some of these things that the yogis share with us, we hear them, but what's magical about it is that you'll be in a particular situation and it'll just emerge at the right time for you. Like it'll become useful at that moment. And so for now, it's more like stocking up
to be used later on. So what we're going to do, we have beautiful gifts for you before you leave. I know we went a little bit over, so our apologies for that. Does anyone have to really leave right now? We need like another maximum 5 to 10 minutes of your time. Can everyone stay? All right, so have we shown the video, this little love letter to Brahma Baba? So Brahma Baba's Sister Kala had mentioned he did something with his download, and this is just one of the students that just put together some of their thoughts and feelings of what they felt. The music in the background is in Hindi, and Sister Kala will translate the words for you in English. And then we will offer you blessings. You'll all come up individually, meet Sister Kala, exchange just that loving moment together. She'll offer you a gift, and I will give you some treat that you can eat and take away with. And of course, as you know, the bookshop and everything is open for you, and anything else that you might need, feel free to let us know. And I know Antonia does the logistics of the donations and all of that, but she's disappeared, and that's okay. I think we know by now. Oh. You can go ahead. Ew. That's what I call an angel pose. Here.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. And also, we have, like Sister Jenna mentioned, a gift shop in the back with CDs and meditations. We have some really nice ones there, and one by Sister Jenna that's called Off to Work, which is really nice. And also, we have a nice book. We have a number of nice books there, too, that you can see as you're leaving. And all of our workshops and classes that we offer here are done free of charge, but we do accept contributions. If you'd like to make one, there's a box in the reception area as well. And thank you very much.
चलो हम चलें पांच तत्वों के पार जहाँ रहते हैं शिव बाबा हमारे मिले हम गुणों के भंडारी से जाके लूटे उन्हीं से अनोखे नजारे चलो हम चलें हमें बिंदु से रूप में है समाना हमें बिंदु से रूप में है समाना करे सेवा सबकी ये बाबा का कहना निराली ये शक्ति है दुनिया को देना वतन में खड़े बाप दादा पुकारे चलो हम चले पांच तत्वों के पार जहाँ रहते हैं चले पांच तत्वों के पार जहाँ रहते हैं शिव बाबा हमारे चलो हम चले हमें छोड़ अवगुण है बनना फरिश्ता हमें छोड़ अवगुण है बनना फरिश्ता करें बिंदु के साथ प्यारा सा रिश्ता सभी बातों को भूल मन याद रखता इसी नेह से सर्व बन जाए न्यारे चलो हम चले पांच तत्वों के पार चलो हम चले पांच तत्वों के पार जहाँ रहते हैं शिव बाबा हमारे चलो हम चले पांच चलो हम चलो हम चले पांच चलो हम चलो हम चले पांच चलो हम
So let's take 2 minutes to take it all in. Remember who I am. Merge in that ocean of pure love. The love of God. The one who sees me in my true form. And let me be so open to that love. That I too can become so full of that pure love that understands, that sees everything with the heart. That forgets and forgives. And stays light as an angel, knowing that I must move on. For the good of all, but most importantly, for my own good. I move on as a companion of God. Detached and loving. Angel. Om Shanti.
I have walked between heaven and hell, lived in the shadows I knew so well, been scared and let down, and wandered from my truth, and I'm sending this message home. I've been blinded by fortune and fame, caught in the glitter of ego's game, been betrayed by my best friends so I could learn who I am, and I'm sending this message home. Got the angels beside me, children all around me, and the Father is at my feet. Got my fingers in the sockets, diamonds in my pockets, and the mother, she comforts me. Mother, she comforts me. Heard all the lies that these wise men tell, lost in confusion of words they sell. But the truth is so simple, stares you right in the eye, and it's all in the message home. Been touched by beauty and brought to my knees by the grace of your presence when I was in need. And I believe in love, and I believe in me, and I'm sending this message home. Got the angels beside me, children all around me, and the Father is at my feet. Got my fingers in the sockets, diamonds in my pockets, and the mother, she comforts me. The mother, she comforts It's all around me, a silent voice I can't deny. A mother's arms, how they surround me. They sing the beauty of my life.
It will last forever. It will never fade away. Never cause me pain. This love, this love.
I close my eyes. It takes me over. A memory deep down in my soul. And safe from harm to be beside you. A light will shine upon the world.
It will last forever. It will never fade away. Never cause me pain. This love, this love.
It will last forever.